Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Classic Reddit, where real humans read Reddit content. If you're interested in making these kind of videos where you record your screen and you are reading what's in front of you and you can explore and interact with it to have it shown to you in a very simple form, so instead of websites and all these things you have to get distracted by and notifications, it's just the thing you're reading and reacting to in front of you and you're recording it and you're making a video that way. Check out the end of this video if you're interested in that. Today's Ask Reddit post is by 1982 throwaway one. And it is the question, what is the strangest thing you've seen that you cannot explain? Oh, an epic post by Little Vi. Oh, that's a Breath of the Wild reference. Nice. Fall 2009, I was sick, like super sick. It was a few weeks before my amputation and I was battling a severe bone infection. I was hopped on all kinds of antibiotics. I had a PICC line and would dose my antibiotics through these little bowls, and pain medication. I'm a huge Yankee fan, so my best friend got us tickets for the ALCS game at Yankee Stadium. She pushed me around the stadium in a wheelchair with a shit ton of blankets on me. It was freezing, just to put a smile on my face. My friend leaves our seats to go get some hot dogs and stuff. This is where it gets weird. As soon as she leaves, to my recollection, an oldish Irish gentleman sits by me. He offers me some of his spiked hot chocolate. And I said no thanks and explained I was on a lot of medication. We began talking and I told him what was going on with my life. He asked if I was scared to have my leg amputated, and I told him that I was. I was really frightened of the unknown, and he gave me some pretty valuable life advice and comforted me. He assured me it would be fine. He told me that if you have to be an amputee, try to be the best damn amputee there is. My friend comes back with food and asks who I was talking to. There's no one next to me. I guess I must have hallucinated this, but I don't know. It felt more like some kind of angel or being that came to let me know I was going to be okay. I guess my guardian angel is an Irishman with spiked hot chocolate. I feel like he actually said yes to the spiked hot chocolate. Not sure if this makes it more creepy or not, but the Yankees were playing the Angels in that series. You've got the best guardian angel there is if he offers you spiked hot chocolate. Another reply to what's the strangest thing you've seen that you cannot explain. A very badass Great Dane I knew, a former neighbor's dog, was so afraid of a month-old kitten that he ran into the deepest room of his home and didn't stop quivering and whimpering for several hours. For context, he wasn't a timid dog. Little over a month before the mentioned incident, a drunk man attempted to break into their home at night, and the dog bit half of his foot off. P.S. Rest in peace, Scoob. Animals are very cautious around babies of another species. They know mom is around somewhere, and mom will fight to the death to protect them. I don't know, but does a Great Dane realistically need to be afraid of a mother cat? I mean, dogs can F cats up. Cats can get away from dogs. Cats can inconvenience dogs. But here in the streets, there's a lot of stray cats and dogs, and you don't see dogs getting killed by cats. That's not a common thing, let's say. Maybe a dog gets a wound or gets hit by a car because of a cat's actions, but yeah, the cat's gonna be in trouble. Dogs are weird, but I love them. My technical stepfather brought an idiot cockapoo who wasn't afraid of anything. One day, one of my friends showed up and he wouldn't go near her, just kept barking and backing away. Oh, he seems to be afraid of black people, but she's not black. Four Amish men in a room, counting money with a money counter, while simultaneously weighing out my 1 ounce of weed. It just wasn't what I expected. Back in the 80s, an Amish-run drug ring was broken up near me. Said ring would actually cross the border into Canada, smuggling their product in their buggies. I still remember a Canadian border guard testifying they never searched the vehicles because they were Amish, and couldn't conceive of them doing something illegal. Because I've been counting drug cash for so long that even Ezekiel thinks that my mind was gone. The fuck? I got awards and stuff. Amazing. Thank you. You make a throwaway joke on Redis while taking a jump, go shopping, and come back gold. What world we live in. Oh, I didn't realize that long edits were a problem on Reddit. Apparently it makes me sad. Do long edits annoy people? Really? Oh, you should have said, I'd really hate to outstay my welcome on a comment without realizing it to incur the judgment and wrath of my fellow Redditors just by doing something so foolish. I can only offer my most sincere and heartfelt apologies for my behavior, which can only surely be judged as the behavior of an absolute bastard. The kind of bastard who just outstays his welcome long after the party has ended, after the last guests have gone, and the host is yawning loudly and emptying the bins around him, who on leaving asks to use the toilet and then doesn't flush the bowl. Sincerely yours, Mr. Shakescraft. Ha! I love that commentary. Yeah, I hate that editing culture. Screw that, I don't give a... If I can edit something I wrote and make it better, I'm gonna do that. Yeah, I don't really care. People, that's one thing reading this comment, reading these Reddit posts has gotten me, it's kind of alarming to me how much people talk about, oh, I'm sorry I edited that, hey, I edited that. And like, it's weird because there's so many people who are seeing things, and over 100 years, most people aren't gonna see the first version of something, they're gonna see edited versions of it, right? So like, to edit stuff but feel like you need to go down and add to it, not change what you originally wrote because you thought of something better, just on the chance that someone who already saw it will know that you edited it and that, oh no, you're a fake. It's so dumb. That's like the kind of logic where, imagine you're in another country, different language, okay? Whatever language you are, you whatever you speak, okay, imagine there's another one too, right? You got the one you know, and then there's another one. There are these things called translation devices and tools, right? Like you can go to Google and you can Google Translate, right? So you could learn what a word is, yeah? Well, except a lot of people, most people in fact, don't even think about it. They think of it as cheating. Like they don't want to use a translator because they're like, no, if you use a translator, you don't know the language. And so they refuse to actually use it because of their pride. And it's so irritating. Like, I keep being like, okay, you can just use this translator and back translate it, and you can learn what to say, practice that, and then say it to people. It's a very useful tool to allow you to communicate more effectively with people. And then people are like, no, you're fake. You're using a translator. No, I'm better than that. I can learn more slow and hard. Moving on. This reply to what's the strangest thing you've seen that you can't explain? I went hiking late at night with my buddy when something big and bright flew right over us above the tree line. It was so bright we couldn't even look at it, and whatever it was didn't make a sound. Actually, it was probably the most quiet moment in my life. I remember saying, what the fuck? But no sound came out of my mouth. It only lasted a few seconds, and it was over. Probably a small meteorite. You can look at videos of them online. They fit the description almost perfectly. I've seen meteors that lit up the whole sky, almost like day, but were so high you couldn't hear them. I was driving home from work one afternoon with my brother and one cousin in the car. As we were sitting in traffic, I noticed high up in the sky and way out in the distance a small motionless black square. I pointed it out and both my brother and my cousin spotted it quickly, so I know it wasn't in my head. It just remained still for about 45 minutes, and then the sun had set, and it was too dark to spot it any longer. It just stayed in the exact same spot the whole time, and while it was really far away, you could still tell it was a perfect square shape. Once I got home, I went online to see if there were any mentions of it anywhere, and there was nothing. To this day, I still think about it and wonder what the fuck it was I was looking at. Standing outside of a convenience store, I saw two different cars park about a minute or so and go in the store. It was obvious the two didn't know each other, at least it seemed. After shopping they left in the other's car. I still can't explain it today without going down the CIA conspiracy route. This happened to a guy I worked with years ago. He ran into a store on his way to work to grab some coffee, I think, and he left his car running. When he leaves, he gets in what he thought was his car and continues to work. When he got to work, he gets a frantic call from his wife because the police were trying to get a hold of him. Turns out he had taken a nearly identical car that was also left running. He said in hindsight that he thought the car felt off, but was too oblivious to notice that morning. What I remember, the other driver was understanding and there was no legal trouble. Well, it's hard to say someone stole your car when they left you an identical car as well. I mean, they'd probably notice that the car that looks identical to theirs was there. It's not like their car was just gone. That sounds like something I could imagine people who have like too much money and too much time. Like they'd be like, oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going, or a crazy YouTuber thing. That would also be a crazy YouTuber thing. You know, where YouTubers just record crazy reactions to stuff they do to people, right? So imagine you got money, you got a lot of free time, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna get this car. I'm gonna look around. What's a common kind of car? It's driven a lot. I see people around with it. There's, you know, this color is pretty common too. I'm gonna get that car. And then I'm gonna take it to one of these gas stations and I'm gonna switcheroo on someone. You know, I'm gonna try and get that to happen. I feel like there are people who do that kind of stuff. So many humans are bored, and the things that they do when they're bored is kind of, it's fascinating what humans will put our effort and attention into. Sometimes to great lengths for no benefit, really. All right, moving on. Someone said about that original sketchy car switch, very good chance this was a very large nefarious deal. Drugs, guns, money, or humans in the trunk. On a lighter note, it could have been that the two people knew each other and just swapped cars. My mom has got friends to pull in the same service station, and some adults swap around before just for a fresh conversation or a 12-hour drive. You know, I see like this all the time in Southern California and Arizona. It's usually drug traffickers leaving a car full of drugs, then picking up a car full of cash to drive back down to Mexico. How does that person know that? There's no way they know that. See, I like reading Reddit content, but at the same time, it's important to note that it paints a picture of people's prejudices and preconceptions about the world, which is useful, but it isn't what the world is, right? And there's a very interesting story you can look into where Reddit was almost tasked with helping investigate, or Reddit decided to investigate based on some police investigation, or some police information that was given out. And they ended up pinning the wrong person and getting a fuckload of hate and death threats sent to that person's family for something they had nothing to do with. And it was a huge mess. And it shows how like Reddit is funny, but you have to take it with a grain of salt because it's absolute mob mentality. Like, you don't know shit about what these people are and if they're real, or if you can trust them, or if what they're saying is true. Because, okay, I don't read a lot about the comments of liking Reddit, because I skip over that, but a lot of these comments that I read have edits in them where the person's like, holy, thanks for all these likes, these rewards, awesome, this is amazing, this made my day. Like, they can flip out about getting a bunch of these things, right? So that is relevant because people are incentivized to write interesting or comical or amusing things, and there's nothing stopping them from being fictitious, you know? Like, fictitious writing is totally a thing. I guess now you could be a fictitious, non-fictitious writer, right? And you could be a fictitious writer. Complicated. It was obvious the two didn't know each other. Oh, this is by the original poster. At least it seems so. How could you tell this if they parked a minute or so apart? They could have arranged to meet at the store and one just arrived a minute before the other. You know, there's a prank of like road rage where two guys get out, shout at each other, and get in each other's cars. That's true. It could just be two friends trolling people. I would do that to people. I would well, I probably wouldn't do something like that because that could be misunderstood and then get me in trouble. Or, I mean, not in actual trouble, but I'd have to deal with people thinking I was doing a crime. So I'd do something that was more innocent than that, but. All right, this reply by the Can99. It's a thing that happened to me firsthand. As a kid, I went to the kitchen downstairs late at night to get some snacks for midnight gaming. There was this bowl of candy on the top of a shelf that my parents didn't think I knew about, so I grabbed a chair and had to stand on my toes to reach it. The bowl slipped from on top of the shelf and onto the floor, and I held my ears knowing there would be a sound of shattering glass in the middle of the night silence. And I thought my parents would wake up and be mad at me. But there was no sound and no trace of a glass bowl or candy at all. I was so floundered that I just sat on the chair staring at the floor for a while, before going back to my room and wondering what the hell happened. A few days later, my mom was looking for the bowl, but it was nowhere to be found. And I never told anyone, as I thought they would think I was just crazy. Speaking of that edit crap, okay, so to just go on the same train I was just talking about how much people go out of their way to get these comments and upvotes and stuff, here's some edit history I would normally skip over. Edit. Wow, first time I got this many upvotes. Thanks, guys. I don't know how awards work, but I see that I got one. If it means you spent money to give it to me, I'm thankful, but please kindly consider donating it to a local shelter. Edit. From reading the comments, occurrences of this kind seem more common than I could have guessed. Interesting. Please continue to share your versions. Somewhere, someone was woken up by that bowl breaking on their kitchen floor after you teleported it there. My grandfather told me a really cool story. There's a couple of things that grow or rot in trees that glow. Google Foxfire. He saw an owl completely covered in this stuff flying around at night sometime in the 1930s. That's probably not gonna get me very far. At least not to what you're referencing. I found it though, and cool. It's glowing mushrooms. The owl was probably covered in spores, if they glow. And yeah, that would have been rare and really cool to see. Ooh, an epic post by Sadzanziyama. When I was in my 20s in the early 1990s, I had a car accident that kept me in hospital for about a year. It was a Catholic hospital and most of the nursing staff were nuns, and besides the normal checks, they regularly just stopped in to chat and see how I was doing. Early one morning, there was a knock and this nun came in, and I hadn't seen her before, and she introduced herself as Sister Greta, a member of the nursing staff. She sat on the side of me, next to my bed, and we spoke for a few minutes, and she asked if she could say a prayer for me. She held my hand and said a prayer and then wished me well, and she left. About 5 minutes later, there was another knock, and one of the regular sisters came in to say hi. I remarked it was going to be a good day because I'd already gotten one visit from Sister Greta, and now I was getting another one. She said there wasn't a Sister Greta and the staff, and there were only 2 sisters around, it being so early. I pointed to the bed, which clearly showed where she had been sitting, and described her and the habit she'd been wearing, now getting a bit unnerved. The sister basically shrugged and hustled off. She came back around half an hour later with a book about the hospital's history and showed me a picture of some nuns from the 50s. Their habits were exactly the same as Sister Greta's. Turns out that patients regularly mentioned talking to the nuns in old garb. That definitely weren't part of the current staff. I never saw her again or anything similar while I was there. Kind of freaky, but not overtly disturbing. I can't really explain it, but I guess it's the sort of ghost story I'm okay with, if that's what it was. I don't really know it's better. Either that was a ghost story, or there's a hospital with nuns fucking with their patients just for lols. My mother is a midwife, and she said this used to happen in the hospital quite often. A patient would ask, "Who was the kind nurse in the funny hat who visited me last night during rounds?" Funny. More common experience during that time period, 60s to 70s. I was driving home from work on the back roads and was driving behind a car that was the same make, model, and year of my car, just a different color. Further down the road, we both get into the turn lane to turn left onto a long, straight road with open fields on either side. The car in front of me turns onto this road, and I wait for a car to pass and then turn as well. It takes less than 5 seconds. However, when I turn onto the road, the car that had been driving in front of me was nowhere to be seen. This road has no offs, and it's long and straight, and you can see pretty far ahead of you. The car had just vanished, and I still think about it today. I have a damn dash cam now, but I wish I had one of those when I had first seen what had happened that day so I could know. One note about ghost stories and reflections like that is that the way your brain works with hallucinations, you are much more likely to hallucinate something you've seen before than something that you've never seen. So normally when you have a hallucination, it is built off of things you've already seen, particularly things you've seen a lot. And the kind of threshold for the intensity of hallucination, most humans every day experience hallucinations in the outreaches of their vision. Basically, in the extremes of your field of view, you're going to easily have hallucinations where your brain will put things on top of what's actually there instead of taking the time to actually render, so to speak, the object it sees, because it's far out of the field of view, it's out of focus. Whereas when you look directly at something, that's a different part of your brain, and also the objects that are in like your mid view, these are all rendered kind of differently depending on what's going through your head. So when you have a hallucination, you're more likely to see something you've seen before. So especially if your senses are deprived, like when people go blind or they go deaf or they temporarily lose their senses for whatever reason, these kind of experiences are actually quite common. It's very, very regular for a blind person who lost their sight in like their 70s or 80s and now they're blind to experience very vivid hallucinations. Your sight, essentially your brain is putting a whole bunch of hallucinations on top of the things you're seeing so that you can build this sense of reality in your head. And your kind of intellect, so to speak, can be a measurement of how accurate is your emulation in your head of reality. Do the things you think will work in your head actually work when you apply them in the real world, right? So what your brain is doing is it's seeing these 2D images, essentially, 2D images, and it's building all of these concepts on top of all of that so that when you look at an object, like if you look at a dog, you don't just see an image of a dog. You conceptually, your brain starts to remember all the times you've touched a dog, all the dogs you were close to, all the fears you have of a dog, all the love you have of dogs, all the jokes you've heard about. All these things start to be closer. And the dog, the 2D image of the dog, isn't just that. Because we're human, we hallucinate so much stuff on top of that dog, and it's a hallucination because it's different to every single one of us. I assure you that when you're picturing this dog, you're picturing a different kind of dog than I'm picturing. And I had different experiences that I'm putting on this picture of this dog than what you have had. We're hallucinating these pictures, these feelings onto these images and these constructs, right? A lot of the things we do and experience are, in fact, hallucinations. They're just hallucinations we're much more used to, so we don't think about them that way. And hallucinations are very misunderstood, and it's sad. And I'm totally getting off topic. And this video is really long, actually. I'll end after this. This last reply by Rose Gold Daisy to the question, what is the strangest thing you've seen that you can't explain? When I worked in the medical field, I had a dream one night about a patient of mine, a very kind elderly woman whom I visited once or twice a week. In the dream, she came to me, dancing, and called out to me that she wasn't hurting anymore. I was really happy watching her dance after seeing her decline for years. When When I got to work the next morning, I told my coworkers about the dream, and later that morning we got the call from her daughter that she had passed away the night before. I cannot explain that, but I am glad I had told my coworkers about it before the call and not after, otherwise they would never have believed me. It was such a bizarre experience, but so wonderful to feel that she was at peace. Oh, I can't not read this epic post. I love epic posts are long posts, by the way, so anytime I see this whole box, I know that it's a long post before I start reading it. I've never told anyone this before, but I've had this exact same thing. When I was much younger, around 7 or 8, I would spend a lot of time in the pediatric wards. There was nothing wrong with me, just that my dad worked days and my mom worked nights, so my dad would take me to the hospital where my mom worked to chill in the ward's playroom for an hour or so before she finished work and took me to school. This was a regular visit to the ward, and one of the regulars there, Laura, was really ill. I have no idea what was actually wrong with her, but we used to play together a lot on these occasions. One night, I had a dream about her. We were playing and she seemed really happy. Nothing overly significant, but I'd never dreamt about her before. Nevertheless, Dad woke me up to go to the hospital. I told him about the dream and that I was excited to see Laura and tell her too. Dad told me I had to go to Grandma's because I can't go to the hospital today. Later that night, after school, when I got home, my mom was in bits. Laura had passed away during the night. I'm 29 now, and that is one of the earliest and my most vivid memories. It still makes me well up thinking about it and how it impacted my mom. Just changed my age at the time, so I asked my dad about it and he corrected me. I had a similar dream with a friend that passed away in his late 20s in the dream. We were sitting in a truck talking and having a good conversation about nothing in particular when I had the realization that he had passed away in real life. Dream him seemed to just be waiting for me to figure it out on my own. Our conversation immediately switched to serious mode and took on a different feel. He told me how much my friendship had meant to him and that he wasn't in pain, to carry on my life and to do my best, and that he loved me. We hugged. It felt so real and really helped me have some closure about his passing. What? So my dad's dead. My dad's been dead since I was like 11 or 12. And I've had very similar dreams. My dreams don't progress that far though, and actually I haven't had one of these in a long time. But I too used to have a recurring dream where I would be doing something and it would be a normal event, like you're at some family event or you're just at a lunch with friends or you're watching a movie or something. And my dad's also there. And everyone else is acting like that's normal. And I'm like, I remember that he's dead. But I see what's in front of me and I'm like, didn't you die? And that is the dream. That's what recurs. It usually doesn't progress past that part. It's really is just like that. But it's quite funny that this other individual who lost. Oh no, this was a friend. Oh, got it. So that was a friend passing away, whereas for me it was my father. This person had a similar experience. I'm a printer and I have my own shop. At the time I was in Florida for a while. My older brother worked for me, which caused a lot of resentment on his part. We had a big business argument one day, and at the time my gramps was in hospice for pancreatic cancer. We were waiting for the news to come. A customer came in looking for a print job price. I go to the counter and there stands a very striking woman. She was dressed in a vintage 50s sundress and had her makeup and hair done as if she was a pinup model. Imagine a GIL elf green painting. She was even carrying her small purse OG on her forearm. So naturally, I went cotton-mouthed. We discussed the print job, priced it out, and she was ready to leave and we would reconvene. She then wraps her hand around my forearm and says, "All we need is family," and splits. I stared like an Irish setter, with his head cocked as she walked away. I was like, what was that about? Immediately, my dad enters, coming from his dry cleaner next door. He says, "Gramps is gone." I never saw her again. Alright everybody, thanks for watching. If you want to make this kind of content, please reach out to us so we can set up a call to talk to you and chat about it. You can get our email address by going to the About page on this YouTube channel and clicking About and doing a CAPTCHA. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Ciao.